Kanavi. So he is basically on the most owned team outside of like a most owned team, JDG.
Yep. That's so
But
surprising to me,
he
though.
is the jungler, right?
Yeah, he's the jungler for JDG.
Yeah.
And it was JDG against LNG last night, right? Or was it JDG against LGD?
Sorry, I'm looking through my data here. Now you have me doubting everything I've ever known.
I'm not doubting that
Again,
it's right. I'm just surprised that that's like it makes sense to me that Kanavi would be high owned because he allowed you to get a lot of different roster constructions. So that's not a problem, you know. This is outside
there's
of
a quote.
DFS, but
Oh, yeah.
okay. So I'll get both of those questions while you look that up. So I'll do DFS Taskmaster first because I'm a fair guy and he asked first. Is OMG World Elite a fade for you in GPP due to expected limited upside? Good question. I do agree that there are certain ways that series could go that would limit the upside, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily lower scoring. So if OMG is ahead and World Elite is willing to wait and pick their spot to try to come back in the game, that's going to be a very low scoring series. If if OMG is ahead and World Elite is desperate, then they're going to be throwing themselves at OMG in these fights. And you could see a very extremely high kill score game. So I don't think that it's going to necessarily be a lower scoring matchup. I think it's like a larger piece of the pie though tonight in terms of potential outcomes. So the variance is going to be higher, but those high upside games are not eliminated. I really there are ways where OMG could be the highest scoring team on the night. If they get ahead in the early game in game 1 and World Elite has a team composition that like doesn't have great tanks or great engage or great disengage, then OMG could just let World Elite run at them every single fight, kill them, take the next objective, set up for the next objective. World Elite runs in, dies, and OMG takes the next objective. It just depends on how the team that's playing from behind goes about their business. If anything in this matchup, I think that OMG being involved limits their own upside because when they're ahead, I don't think they're going to let World Elite dictate the pace of play. And then when World Elite is ahead, they kind of do whatever they want. World Elite, World Elite, I feel like they need to fight more to make the objectives happen. So if World Elite wins, I expect them to be high scoring.
Yeah, my numbers look correct. So yeah, he was the highest owned. Yeah.
And he was playing against LGD last night, right? I'll look it up.
Yes.
Yeah, they were against JDG last night. So that's a good fantasy scoring matchup. Obviously, like LGD gives up a lot of points when they're losing.
Yeah. As someone who doesn't know League, these things all like run together, and all the names are so similar.
Yeah, I get that.
I remember who played who.
So where are we now?
Yeah. So there's the other tweet I had of the position breakdown of captain from this morning.
Got it. 4, 10, 20.
Yeah, that guy right there. Oh, now you're right in the middle. Of course.
I strike again. I am the pie. The shy, more like the pie.
Just Call Me Q said that there's a fart joke somewhere in Southwind's name that we missed.
Oh yeah, prove it. Make him do it. Cody Huffman 85 says, "Is this is outside of DFS, but you said TES should take one against FPX." Yes, I do believe that. Cody also said, "I would fade World Elite more than OMG more." I would fade World Elite more. I think he means that he would prefer to fade World Elite than gain exposure to OMG. I feel as if ownership will be way up on World Elite compared to OMG. Yes. Did you read that differently than I did?
Yeah, I think that was an answer to the earlier question about fading the whole game. And he was saying he'd rather...
Yeah, avoid the extra more. Okay, good. I don't possess the level of dad to get that one off. There's a joke in there too, but I'm not going to touch that one. So what do you want to tell us about this image that we have in front of us besides that support is elite?
Yeah, so looking here, this is again from the Titans Fury from this morning slate. So really, it's ADC people tried to get in, and they got it in. Speaking of jokes,
some new fathers,
and but pretty much ADC, and then it went to jungler, and then to mid. And a lot of people say start at ADC, go to mid, and that's how we've been doing.
Yep.
But some of that could be related to that Kanavi.
Yes.
Having him in could have brought that up over the mid. I don't know who's the mid for that team.
For JDG?
Yeah.
Yagao? He doesn't have huge fantasy upside, I don't think. Well, he does. He has the upside, but he hasn't demonstrated it. That's what I should say.
Right. Which most projection systems won't catch.
Yeah. I think another reason why this probably happened is because of the teams that you wanted to get into your lineups. You know, so if you wanted two favorites, you kind of had to go to jungle.
Yeah. What's our prediction for tonight? Do we think, well, based on what we saw, you think that ADC section is even bigger?
Yes. I mean, well, it's interesting because last night was a 3-game slate or a 4-game slate?
It was 3.
Okay, so I haven't looked at this for anything other than a 3-game slate. So tonight's a 3-game slate. I would expect AD carry to be closer to 35 to 40%. I would guess that mid is 5 to 10% lower than that. Jungle is 5 to 10% lower than that. Top is 5 to 10% lower than that. And then support's 5 to 10% lower than that. And team should be 0. Anybody who's out there putting team as your captain, you're just asking to lose. That's not going to happen.
To be fair, I think there's more people that didn't enter lineups than had a team as captain.
That's funny.
They enter lineups.
So if you want to put numbers on it for what I'm actually guessing, I'll do ADC 37.5, mid 32.5, jungle 25. Actually, jungle 25, top 15, support 5. What am I at with those numbers? Am I over? How close did I get to 100?
I don't know. I wasn't writing it down.
Oh God, that was your whole job. That was your job.
Well, you should tell me my job before you start.
All right, let's do it again.
Talking.
ADC 40.
All right.
Or no, ADC 37.5.
Okay, now you're just getting silly.
That's what I said last time.
That.
37.5. Mid 32.5. Top 27.5. Or no, jungle 27.5. Top. Make it 15 for top. And then 5 for support. Is that too much?
You have 117.5%.
All right, so then I would shave off 5% from the first 3 that I named. I don't know. Maybe I should shave some off of like support, because if make support 2.5%, because I just think it's fundamentally different, like the slate, because I think yesterday it was tough to see the upside that the underdogs had because we had some bigger favorites. So tonight, when we have underdogs that people like, I just feel like it's going to be mids and 80 carries all over the place.
Yeah, and the salaries make it easier. So
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's gonna try.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna, other than 150 lineups, they're gonna get a few supports and tops and stuff.
Yeah. So was there anything else you wanted to go over tonight? I think that was basically it, right?
Um, well, I mean, I guess we were talking about leverage on this chart. These numbers that you just shot out. So we think ADC is going to be higher, right?
Yes, very high.
So let's take a look at the jungle and mid position. If you want to pull up DraftKings again.
DraftKings or the sheet?
DraftKings, just so we can get a list of the people at jungle and mid and see if there's people we want to target at captain to try and get some ownership leverage on the captain slot.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. So, okay. So I think I'd rather do it from here, because I have everything right here.
Okay.
So,
Fine.
because this will let me compare them to one another a little bit too.
Sure. Perfect.
Okay. So, do you have any specific questions that could kind of start me off? Because I need a kickstart.
All right. So I guess what we're looking for in our captain is ceiling, right? So who at jungle and mid has an ADC ceiling? If you say everyone, then
okay. So if I'm being it really comes down to the meta in regards to the actual meta within League of Legends, because the way that jungle looks right now is that you can play carry champions in the jungle, and you cannot always do that in League of Legends. So the fact that you can play Kindred and Graves and you can play Elise, these are champions that they give you the upside of an 80 carry. Like if you go back to Haro's performance on that one huge slate, he had 13 kills in one game as Elise, and he can do that on several different kinds of champions. So it happens less often, obviously, but if we're just looking at ceiling and not how often they hit their ceiling, I think 80 carry, mid, and jungle are. I would rank it as 80 carry has the highest ceiling and is the most likely to hit it. Mid lane has the same ceiling but is less likely to hit it. Jungle has the same upside but is significantly less likely to hit it. Then top, same thing. Because theoretically, we could have tops, a carry top laner, have back-to-back games in a 2-0 where they're the highest scorer on their team, but that almost never happens. So let's look at those scenarios then. So we have 80 carry, mid, jungle, top. So when I'm looking for a top laner that I'm going to play as a captain, he needs to be a carry player because carries mean more kills. Playing a carry champion means that you have access to a higher number of kills.
Okay.
And then for a top laner, if a top laner is going to be my captain, I also need them to go 2-0, because the game not played bonus is more important for top than the other three positions listed here. In a loss, top laners are more negatively impacted in general. There is the chance that you could have a top laner lose and their team has like 15 to 20 kills and he goes off, but in a loss, it's more likely that he's going to be one of the first people to engage or disengage in a fight and die. So the deaths are going to limit the upside a little bit. So for the top laners tonight, Gimgoon has a good ceiling. And then all three of these guys have good ceilings. Morgan is a carry player. He's a Korean playing in China. He is very good on the Korean solo queue and the Chinese solo queue, I think, which is why he's been picked up by an LPL team. Crazy has shown high upside in the past as well. So I like both of them in this matchup. I could see either one of them getting up to probably 150-ish, like, as a captain. Because that would be 40 points, and then the game not played bonus, and then multiplying it by 1.5, right? So that's 150. They can both get to 100. The difference between 80 carries and top laners as your captains is that 80 carries legitimately have a chance of going to 200. Not often, but there's a chance. So I don't like the upside for Lies. I don't like the upside for Curse. I haven't seen them do it in the past in terms of carrying games and like playing the correct champions to carry. And if they have been given a champion that carries, I don't think they've done it so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
For junglers, I think the only jungler that I would stay away from as a captain is Hacker. Hacker could theoretically do it, but I haven't seen him do it. I haven't seen him carry through the jungle, I don't think, this year. Or at least it didn't make an impression on me, even if he did. Like, there are games where Karsa goes out of control, and I've seen those games, so I know that he can do it. Haro, we've seen it. I know that he can. Beishang, same thing. Peanut, great player. Tian might actually have a lower upside than the other four. But you still have to kind of include him in that clump of players who could theoretically get there. Next up is the mid lane. The mid lanes that you really want to get exposure to as your captains are Doinb, Teacher Ma, and Knight. Yuki, Icon, and Wuming. I'm sure that they could get there. They can probably get up to the 150 to 160. Doinb can probably get up to 200 if you wanted to. Knight definitely can get up to 200. And I think Teacher Ma has that upside, but I don't think we've seen it from him yet. And then for 80 carries, I could see any of these 80 carries doing it, except for probably SMLZ, because SMLZ is going to be limited by the game environment. I think. I don't think that it's as likely for OMG to win 2-0 in two extremely bloody games. I just don't see that happening very often.
All right. So you're saying he smells?
Yeah. Precisely.
Tonight.
Let's just say I don't Jackie love him. I'm not going to Kramer him into any lineups.
Oh. That's what this show is missing.
Well, it's not missing it anymore. They have arrived. The shitty jokes have arrived.
So what people else? Into a false sense of security in anything I'm doing. I leave the puns out, and then once they can't get rid of me easily, that's when I pull them out.
The old rope-a-dope.
Oh.
So what do you think?
Rope-a-dope.
What do you think about what I was just saying about the ceilings for these? Have you seen anything like that in the data?
I have not looked at ceilings yet. That has not been something.
Well, not even like ceilings from theoretical ceilings, just like even the highest score from a player in a season, you know? Like,
oh sure.
Have you seen a top laner or a jungler get up to 200? I think Karsa did once.
Up to 200? No, I don't think so. I know Knight the other day had an insane game.
Yeah.
And Peanut has had some insane. He's not top. Sorry. I'm jumping all over the place on positions here. I feel like I've seen a lot of people saying Haro has done something. No.
Yeah, he's good.
Else.
So somebody in chat, FN Gnome, says You have no faith in Curse. He put 20 kills and 25 assists against World Elite last summer. Last summer, I didn't pay much attention to China, so I did not know that. But that is interesting. Did Curse play for OMG last year, and has something fundamentally changed about their playstyle that has limited their upside this year? I guess you're just as good of a person to ask as anybody, because I have no idea.
I don't know. We can look.
I guess we could look through Gamepedia or whatever, but that might get kind of boring. Is there anything else you wanted to take a look at while I try to scrounge up this game from last year?
So I just tweeted out the last piece of data, the one that actually took me the most time today.
Okay.
About this morning.
What's that?
You want to pull that up? That's the stack. How many times different teams were stacked?
Okay. Go on.
So yeah, basically, I took each team, and I found how many times they were stacked: 4, 3, 2. And I guess one's not a stack technically. Just trying to get an idea of if team like for instance, yeah. So we take a look here. The biggest thing that stood out to me is that more often than IG in 4, but then IG was sort of fit in IG as 1-offs and 2-offs more often than JDG.
Do you have any theories about that?
Yeah, so I mean, IG, that game everybody was talking about was going to be the kill factory of this morning. So people wanted just to get them in any way they could. And so if people are building a lineup and they're like, okay, I'm going to take this stack and then this stack and I want a 1-off, I want it to be from a high kill game, right?
Sure.
That's sort of a common thought. And then the other interesting to look at here is how some teams, let's see, for instance, EDG kind of follows the reverse course of JDG and IG. They were stacked less as 4, and they were basically the same as 3, but then there was a lot more 2 and 1. So that says to me that people wanted them, but they weren't as confident that that was the big team that was going to score them the most points altogether.
Yeah. So would there be a way to blend these together where it's like what percentage of lineups were JDG plus World Elite?
I think so. I definitely want to look at because these are just individual stacks. These aren't how one lineup had multiple stacks. So not just the teams, but also how many people made 4 3s and how many made 4 2-1s. That's something I want to do.
So you want to try to break it down to the user level?
To the lineup level, yeah. So
because you could do it to the. I mean, I don't want to make more work for you, but you could start building like player profiles.
Oh yeah, I don't have that kind of time.
You just got to figure it out once and then loop it.
If Rotor Grinders would just get this into the results database, I wouldn't have to do this as much.
True.
I do know that there's another website that has similar data and does this sort of stuff in a look back mode, but I don't like that site, so I wanted to do it on my own.
Sure.
Plus, it was a good exercise.
Yeah.
And something I could add to my hashtag brand.
I think that learning new things is always great, especially in Excel. Excel's cool for nerds.
Yeah. But yeah, this to me is interesting. And I think it's hard to take something like this on its own because it's obviously very slate dependent how people want to construct. But if we can somehow, I mean, ultimately, what we'd want to do is to try and categorize slates in a certain way and have this data available. So you take a look at, hey, let me take a look at all the slates that have, and I don't even know how you would classify it. Maybe by odds, like I don't know, odds pricing. I'm not sure. That's a whole nother avenue. But if you could have this data, like this, categorize a slate by like, here we have this. We have two big favorites, one small favorite, and then we could go. Then we could go back and look at like 100 slates with similar odds, or the closest 20 slates. I don't know.
So just so that I understand,
you could
just so that I understand this correctly.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure I get every box correct, right? So 76% of lineups had some exposure to JDG.
Correct.
Okay. And then 74.42% of lineups had a stack of 4 players from the same team.
That's slightly off the screen, but yes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or maybe it's just the chat I got in here.
No, I think
HO25 says, which way are you guys leaning towards in FPX versus TS? And I'm going to say whatever's lower on.
Okay, so...
For myself.
Yeah, so he could be asking, or she could be asking, like, from a betting perspective, I prefer the top esports side with plus 1.5 maps. From a DraftKings perspective, I still prefer. I think I do prefer the top esports side. So the problem is FPX is a really good team. If this was a favorite that I had less faith in, then I would probably just go all in on top esports. Because top esports is so like mispriced that you could basically do whatever you want, and you can basically do whatever you want with an underdog in general. So it's not like you're getting some avenue to something that you don't otherwise.
I mean, that's good for ownership of that team, then.
Yeah. Right? So if we look at the ownership,
people are going to be trying.
If we look at the ownership from last night for the underdogs, World Elite was the best perceived dog. They had 38%. Okay. And then the other ones were significantly lower. So if we were trying to match up tonight's slate with this grid, do you have any opinions on that yet?
I think these are two completely different slates.
Sure.
Which is where I was kind of going down.
Sure.
The rabbit hole.
Yeah, I figured that was just that's the logical next step for us to talk about. So
yeah.
So starting with game one. Game one is Rogue Warriors. Is that the first one, or I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Rogue Warriors LGD. So Rogue Warriors and LGD. Do you have the Vegas information? Because you could theoretically, you would need it from last night. So you could do like, what was the implied odds of JDG winning? So what was the implied odds of JDG winning compared to their Vegas, or what was their implied win rate compared to their exposure in lineups?
You jump back on my Twitter timeline and look that up real quick.
Cool. Okay, so then I'll just start going through what I think about. Or actually, I got two.
Well, actually, I only have the combos. I don't actually save the data between nights, which is
I could probably find that. So he said, "Hey guys, I love World Elite upside. Do you think that it is a good bet tonight?" Hollywood Jack. By bet, are you saying real life money bet, or are you saying make lineups on DraftKings? Because I think making lineups on DraftKings, yes, getting exposure to World Elite is good. In terms of real life, thanks, Doug. So, Doug, I think that World Elite is definitely capable of winning this matchup tonight. I am kind of surprised they're not the favorite. because I would expect the public to want. Oh yeah, on DraftKings, sure. I think getting exposure to World Elite tonight is fine. On DraftKings, definitely. But I was mentioning before that I do also look at the real life lines. So World Elite versus OMG is now minus 115 on each side. So World Elite was an underdog. Now they're at minus 115. So I think there is money coming on them. And
Oh, really? Okay.
I think that probably, I would not be surprised if these lines are starting to be impacted by people who are getting exposure to esports through DraftKings, like starting to put in real life bets. And I think
Sure. Yeah.
I think the sharp side is OMG, because OMG plays a less interesting style and they're just as capable of winning this matchup tonight. There's no reason to think that World Elite comes out and dominates OMG. And it's important to realize that when if you're watching these games, just because a team wins and has 20 kills and the other team has 5, that's not, in my opinion, the true measure of how dominant a win is. Because when you're behind in League of Legends, it's extremely difficult to get back into the game. So the game could be like a very close game until the breaking point where the gold lead expands past 2,000 gold, and then everything after that is a crapshoot. Like, it's tough to explain. I'd have to have a VOD ready to demonstrate what I mean. So if we go back to Rogue Warriors and LGD, so if I was looking at tonight's slate and trying to project the numbers from this, I think that the highest owned team, I think that you're going to see ownership spread a little bit more evenly tonight. I think FPX can get up into that 70% range. And then everything else would be closer.
Sure. Not a second team.
Yeah, LGD Rogue Warriors. I think LGD will have more ownership. So maybe we could throw them at like 40%. And then, so JDG played against LGD. So we had 15, that's 90% of total lineups. World Elite played against EDG, and that was about 90% of lineups. And then Invictus Gaming played LNG, and that was about 90% of lineups. So I guess we have 90% to split between two teams for most matchups. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
That's why they call me Data Boy.
Who calls you Data Boy?
You just called me Data Boy.
Why do you still talk to
You just said
them?
that yesterday.
Well, why do you still talk to me then?
That's a good point. Was thinking of a Fun plus Phoenix World Elite stack tonight myself. Well, Doug, I believe that is going to be a popular roster construction. So based off of that thing that I just said about like 90%, 90%, 90%, I think that Rogue Warriors LGD, I would expect LGD to be about 55%, Rogue Warriors to be 35%. I'll write this down. This is super cool. This is very interesting. Like the fact that the games basically have the same exposure. You know, like I would love to see this for. We should look at the history of a mixed slate, because you're not going to see this there. You know.
Right. Yeah.
So Rogue Warriors 35, LGD 55, World Elite OMG. I think we'll see World Elite. Maybe I think I could see World Elite getting up to high 60s, maybe 70. I think they're just such a more attractive side. Don't you?
I think they have a especially after last night, where they were also. I mean, there's a narrative behind them of them winning. What they'd win. This is their third week they have to win, right?
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so if we reproduce this sheet for tomorrow, my guess is that World Elite and FPX are both in 70% of entries. LGD is in 55% of entries. Rogue Warriors is in 35% of entries. And then OMG and Top Esports are in 20% of entries. I think the one that I'm most likely to be off on is Top Esports. I could see the Top Esports one shooting up. Do you have any opinions on that? On how you expect this one to go? This one tonight?
Looking at the ownership that I'm looking at, yeah, it's really mixed. So I think it does make sense, definitely, that it's going to be more compact. We're not going to have those outlier numbers like 10, and the higher ones will be smaller. So your range makes sense to me. The actual specifics between teams, I'd leave that up to you.
If I sent you the information from last night, how long would it take you to reproduce this sheet?
From what do you mean?
Oh wait, sorry. If I got you the lines for yesterday, how long would it take you to incorporate them?
But not long. If you want to know the odds,
like, do you have the money lines from yesterday? Because I have I have both in that sheet that I just sent you, I think.
Okay.
So okay, so this is from yesterday. Invictus Gaming was a 94% favorite, so you'd have to remove the VIGs. I'll keep looking at that sheet though, or that graph while you try to figure out if you can incorporate it or not. I know that you can, but just like in regards to how much time it would take. So the other thing that I'm noticing from this is that you have JDG and EDG both they were both used more as 4 stacks than any other size stack, which makes me think that was the first team that people wanted to get into their lineups. And then as they tried to use them as a secondary stack, so they probably had exposure to an underdog as their primary team. And then we go down to the 3s where they're just they're like a pure secondary team, or a 2. So then these are where people are looking to get pivots and stuff like that. So these are interesting lineups, like the ones that have 2s and 1s from a team, because that just means these are the ones that people are using to try to pivot. So I would expect to see a lot of sharp ownership in there.
I guess I would have expected IG to be higher than JDG for one-offs.
Okay, so Hoagie House just said, I've seen more unlikely lineups winning lately, a lot of top captain and one-off captain. I have not seen anybody do a one-off captain. If you want to show me a lineup that won a tournament that was a one-off captain, I would like to see that. Because I'm not saying that you're lying. I don't remember seeing that anywhere. And then 3 to 4 weeks ago, it was all 80 carries and mids. So one thing to keep in mind for that is that 3 to 4 weeks ago, we were focused a lot more on not only LPL and LCK, but we were also watching North American matches and European matches, and those were 1 games. So when you have 1 game sets and an underdog wins 1 game, then what won a one-off last night? A one-off captain? Was it Jiaomeng? Because the one that I saw was like a 3-4 stack. I didn't look at the Titans Fury from last night. But what I was going to say is, when all the matches are 1 game, if an underdog wins on that slate, it's going to be an 80 carry or a mid, because they don't need to do it 2 out of 3 games, or they don't need to do it 2 out of 3 games. They just need to do it once and be the highest scoring team.
Here, this is the sent you the Titans Fury winner from this morning.
Cube is on VG, right?
Oh, on FanDuel. I don't know about FanDuel.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking specifically about DraftKings. I'm not as familiar with FanDuel. I haven't been paying attention to FanDuel. I never played League of Legends DFS on FanDuel, but a lot of people are asking me about it, so now I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more. I think if people are coming to me for information about League of Legends and how I think games are going to go and trying to help them build up their specific game knowledge, then great. If you're going to ask me specific plays and stuff like that, like I don't give the line in the sand play that a lot of other people do. FN Gnome TES is still playing for the potential 4th seed. So the difference between playoff implications between Fun Plus Phoenix and Top Esports is that they're both very good teams, and even if Fun Plus Phoenix has nothing to play for, they will want to prove themselves against Top Esports because it's basically a practice match for the playoffs. That's a good measuring tool going into playoffs. When you're OMG and World Elite, you're playing for your life, your playoff life. That's different. Cody said, it's not a fun time on FanDuel. I'll take DK over FanDuel any day of the week. Interesting. So let me...
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So
in other sports also.
Were you able to find the way to match it up?
I'm gonna do it without
removing the VIG.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Like a relative idea.
Hollywood Jack, aka Doug, says Jackie Love has been in every winning lineup in a slate he's involved. Is he a fade tonight against FPX? No, he is definitely not a fade. If you are playing more than one lineup, I would definitely want to have a top esports stack, either as my primary or secondary.
And I would say that him being in those winning lineups has nothing to do with him being in any winning lineup tonight.
And I would also say that he was not. He was, yeah, exactly what you said. Correct. I agree.
There is no predictive value in that.
Yeah. So, yeah, Hoagie House. I am not as familiar with like how the lineups, how the salaries impact things here, and that was a 5 cent contest, so that's a little different too. That's crazy. So what I would say is I bet that this is not. I would assume that this is not the optimal lineup from last night. I just think that this was a lineup that finished well in a contest. If you know what I mean.
All
right. Just Call Me Q said, would you fade LeBron? Same premise. I think that was a rhetorical question. Brooklyn Juice says, dude, what do you think of leaving a bunch of salary on the table tonight? I think leaving a bunch of salary on the table is a good option every night.
Every night.
It's like it's not gonna win every night, but it's always something you should consider and have exposure to.
Especially if you're playing a huge contest. It's just a simple way to get.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
So Hoagie House, I think I'm missing the point of what you're trying to get out of me, because I don't think that doing a one-off at captain is ever going to be a play that has a high expected value, and just because it worked on this slate, like I bet there were other lineups that there were better theoretical lineups out there. And if there weren't better theoretical lineups out there, then that means that the salary constraint, like, just ruined that slate. I think the stack I built, FPX World Elite, left like 1,600 on the table. This is the same-ish lineup from the big FanDuel contest. Okay, so A. Collins, Okay, so again, I would need to download the information for this and then figure out, is this an optimal lineup or is this just the winning lineup? You know, because there is a fundamental difference between the two.
Right, so there's the implied win. I just sent you next to the ownership. I don't know if you want me to do anything else to it, or just look at them next to each other.
Yeah, I'm just looking at them. So that is somewhat correlated. Wouldn't you agree? Especially when the VIGs are taken out. I mean, that seems very close.
Yeah. Yep. You want to put that up quick?
Sure. Okay. Cool. So basically, do you want to explain this real quick?
Yeah, so basically, I took the implied win percentage based on Vegas odds last night and just compared it to that ownership number of the team that we were just looking at. Just put them next to each other. And so basically, we have here, if you follow even not so much even need to look at the numbers, but look at the order. So you have IG is the highest implied win. It was also the most owned. JDG. Then what's the next step? Yeah, and then down to EDG, and then to LGD, LNG. So yeah, it matches almost perfectly. The ownership from this morning matches perfectly with what Vegas thought was going to happen.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Had set their lines at.
Well, see, it makes so much sense though too, because if DraftKings is basing their information off Vegas and people are looking at Vegas lines all the time, I mean, it seems inevitable that it would kind of bleed its way into the ownership, right?
Right, and projection systems are most likely going to take that into account. Yeah. A good portion too.
Yeah, definitely. All
right. Well, I'm not sure if you have other stuff to do on this slate, or if you want to go over any questions, but I think I'm gonna hop off.
You building?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna play yet tonight.
Okay. Well, if you wanna,
I've actually reduced my. I've been on a cold streak, so I've reduced my not so much the numerical volume or the dollar volume, but I've reduced to trying to build less lineups right now because I felt like I was
too focused.
I was off the mark for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I want to get back to the basics there.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to hit on something I think you had mentioned. I don't know, on one of your videos.
Yeah.
One of your streams. How taking the top and support and team of a big favorite for the 2-0 bonus can be a good, like a small stack.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we're going to shut down the stream very shortly. While we were streaming, I became an affiliate with Twitch. So I'm going to run a 60-second ad break. I'm going to answer questions in chat. If you want to ask me any other questions, make sure you hit me up on Twitter. Check out my YouTube channel because like I will answer your comments. Like I answer everything. I'm that guy when I have my like work email. I make sure that everything is read. Like I don't let anything fall through the cracks. So if you have any other questions, please hit me up. Matt, thanks a lot for this. This is amazing. This new information that we have. Thanks a lot. This is really cool.
Like I said, I think some of it is available on a site that I don't like to support.
Yeah,
so I wanted to do it on myself.
The site that shall not be named. Yeah. So everybody, again, thank you very much for hanging out. Thanks for helping me get to the affiliate level, and I'm gonna run that ad now. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So
see you, dude.
So I'm gonna shut down the stream when this is done. Do you want to go over anything? Like, are you just gonna go solo build
I'm
lines?
gonna hop out and go do some other stuff first.
Okay, sure. So when you get back later, just hit me up.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.